All right. Hello, hello. Um, so I'm Javon. Um, if you are just hopping on and don't know me, and I love to talk about emotional healing, um, and how to do it, what the positives are about it, and how it has helped me on these live streams. And it is what I've been helping women do for the past 7 years. And beyond. But and today I want to share what I have experienced in terms of just having conversations with people. And so I'll definitely start with the facts, which is that um, I I haven't always been the easiest person to talk to either. Um, and I can say that in a lot of in a lot of the conversations that I have had, um, especially with like colleagues and stuff, not so much client facing because especially because most of the time, like, right, like that's your life, you know. But if we're gonna do some sort of political thing, right, we're having a conversation. I'm having a conversation with somebody who I care about, somebody whose thoughts I would want to change, right, right. So like if it's my husband or like somebody I gotta live with, my child, and we have a disagreement about something, or I really would like them to, right? Like I feel like I would get a direct benefit from them saying or them acknowledging or them actually feeling a certain type of way, right? If I have a stake in that, a personal stake in that, there was always this like heightened sense of debate of like winning a debate with them, right? So like it's not just us having a conversation, it's I'm right though, right? Like not just I have an opinion, I'm putting it out there, but no, listen to me and change the way that you think about it, right? Um, Oftentimes we get into these situations where instead of changing what we think about something, we change what we think about the person that we're talking to. And that is why I wanted to have this particular live stream because this directly ties to emotional well being and healing. And so there are a couple techniques and stuff like that that we will get to, but I do want to start off with just what I think about why tough conversations feel so difficult. And the main reason why I think that is because it's not just what the topic is. As a matter of fact, it doesn't have anything to do with the topic. It's the emotions that are tied to the topic. So anytime there's fear, there's anger, there's rejection, or anything like that that will make you feel like you need to defend yourself or you need to win, right? Like this is the classic like choosing war over peace thing that we think is protecting us, we think is helping us, and it is driving us farther apart from everybody. To the tune of people, you know, logging off, signing out, deleting all of their social media accounts, you know, burning up friendships, um, cutting off family members, etc. All over some stuff that, of course, impacts all of us, um, but is not directly caused by any one person except by all of us, right? And so, and I say that because oftentimes, especially in political situations, and I usually don't even talk about politics because that's a thing. It's that like, I really want to go back and forth with you? But here it is. We can talk about it. Again, I can't come on here and talk about some, tough conversations and then not put myself in a position ever to have tough conversations. So, but what I will say is this: is that in terms of cutting people off and just deactivating all of your social media accounts and stuff like that, all of that type of isolation stuff. um if you watch any of my videos before when I talked about it, then you know that that's not something that I recommend. And I don't, because what that does, again, that becomes a barrier that you think is is just going to keep things out that doesn't happen, right? Like, you don't, as long as you're going outside, especially nowadays, as long as you go outside, you are likely to come up against those same emotions. So you think, okay, if I deactivate my social media accounts, then I don't get to be upset anymore that about who the president is, or I won't see so much of this stuff. I won't have to have these conversations. Like, this will kill it. Except that when I ride around in different parts of the city that I live in, I see, you know, the presidential election banners and uh memorabilia, because I mean, at this point it's like literally from like back in the day, from old presidential elections. And so it's like, you think that you get to avoid feeling that sensation, right? That fear, that hurt, um, that rejection, that um, that lack of trust, that lack of security, if you delete your social media accounts. But then you ride down the street and you annoyed. You know what I'm saying? You thinking about the social media conversations that you were having that had you deactivate your account, right? It's there, right? And so I'm always going to recommend that you deal with this. You deal with what is on inside of you, um, first and foremost, and only, right? That you continue to interact with people who have different ideas than you, who have different beliefs than you, um, people who trigger you, right? If we want to call it that, because when you run away from the triggers and you do that over and over and over and over again, you never deal with them. They stay with you and you continue to suffer. Okay. So, our instinct when we're in these conversations, right? If you feel in the need to defend yourself, our instinct, of course, is to fight, flee, or shut down, right? And especially when we strongly disagree, or especially when we feel like, but they're talking about me, but what they're trying to do psychologically, right, is break me down or minimize me, or my thoughts or my experience, right? And the fact of the matter is that that is impossible, right? Like, they other people's words don't have ingrained in them automatically the power to dismantle anything. It's about what you are believing, what you are internalizing, that can change how you feel about yourself. And again, in order to avoid that, like, people feel like confidence. I was just listening to somebody for a little bit, like maybe 30 seconds, talk about confidence. Um, but people feel like, you know, confidence is some big uh they will acknowledge the intrinsic nature of it, right? Like the part of it that has to come from inside of you, um, to a certain extent, but mostly it's about still what's on the outside of you. What are you portraying? And of course, I know, especially from a marketing perspective, that's about what you get, right? Like, what is the outcome of you having more confidence? But what I think people fail to realize is that confidence in general, when you are interacting with other people, when you're interacting in life, confidence is always going to come from within you. And confidence is not about, of course, many of us can be confident when all of the factors are going the way we would love to, right? But what good does confidence do you if I line up one, two, three things and it goes away because of that, right? So, like, if I'm having a conversation with you about something that we're disagreeing on, and I feel so attacked, I feel so hurt, I feel so um, insecure that, I'm attacking you, right? Um, then where is the confidence in that, right? It's not there. And so, ideally, when you're in these conversations, and this is something that usually takes a while to practice. But it don't need to, right? Like that part, that's that part. But you want to first and foremost be coming from a place that's very authentic. So, and when I say that, what I mean is that if you have to think for a long time about what it is that you're about to say, then that is probably not authentic, right? Like you've rolled it around a few times, you're trying to present it in a certain way, right? And so I feel like very often what is given is like this like pause thing, or whatever. But the way that you ground yourself and that you remain grounded in any sort of situations is not to uh try to premeditate everything or make sure that you are a certain type of way. Groundedness, the way to have life move through you instead of you constantly providing resistance and trying to move it, is for you to say the thing, right? Or not say anything. Most of the time, you don't need to say anything, right? Right? And you get to that point once you said a lot. You learned where it got you to. But the groundedness is not necessarily in I gotta be quiet and I gotta figure out exactly what to say and how to say it. The groundedness is in I know who I am. I know what I am trying to communicate. And I know that I am coming from, I know what my North Star is or my pole star, right? Like I know, where my compass is pointing to. And that is to connection. That is to whatever that may be. And again, that's why I said this conversation is not meant for people who are down with choosing war, right? Like I'm not speaking to you. If if that just so happened to be the case for you, then okay, you're gonna keep doing it anyway. But for people who are um, interested in moving to a place where they have this underlying layer of peace over everything that they do, over all of their interactions, then you get grounded in that, right? Like I know what my purpose is in terms of this conversation, and that is to experience it and whatever comes with it. Oftentimes, we are not. So a lot of people will say stuff like separate the person from the opinion. And what I'm going to say about that is that in reality, they cannot be the same. They are not the same, right? A person saying some words or having some thoughts, all of that stuff changes. And so when you are grounded in reality, that's a non-issue, right? Because you understand at every point that this is somebody who was saying some words. Okay. It is in that translation, right? Like what are you feeling as a result of that? That is where you can have the most impact in your interactions, right? Because most of the time it's when somebody says some words and you feel threatened that you start creating a whole narrative around what that means and what they try to do to you and what you're supposed to feel. And so what you should say next because they did that. That's one part of it. The second part is, okay, so now we're having a conversation with one another, and not only did you say this thing, but then you said the next thing, and then the next, and then the next, and um, all of that energy. So if there's a bit of disappointment mixed in, if there's a bit of disbelief, anger, uh, all the different layers of hurt that could be going into that just build up. That's why conversations usually, regardless of their nature, usually kind of have like these peaks and valleys, is because you get to a point where you have X, Y, or Z things built up, right? Like at the height of the energy of a conversation, usually you guys have so many you each have a bunch of different images piled up on one another, right? You the person who said this, you're the person who believes this, you're the person who said this or this last week. The best way to win connection is your point, right? When that is your mission, and you are trying to connect with people, what you need, what you, what it will behoove you to do is to let all of that stuff go in the conversation, right? So while y'all are going back and forth, dropping it, because all of that stuff that they said before doesn't even really necessarily have anything to do with what they're saying now, right? And if you allow it to, if you allow all of that stuff to layer on, thinking that that's going to protect me, but that provides, more details to the full picture and all of that, then again, you will get that like building up of things, right? So it's not just that you said this, but then you said this, then you said that, then you said that. And this is how you tell the whole conversation. This is how you know that you didn't let any of that go, right? Because when you're talking about the conversation later on with your friend or your cousin or whoever, your therapist, you like, then he said this and then he said that. And then I can't even believe he said that. You know what I'm saying? And so then I said whatever it is that you said to try to bring that person down a notch, to try to defend yourself in whatever way. This is how our conversations go. This is a cycle, right? And if we were just better at being uncomfortable, right? Like honoring our discomfort whenever it showed up, then we wouldn't have these issues. And so that is the part that I would like to present. That's the part that I would like to talk more about how to do. So when it comes to remaining calm, centered in connectedness, and continuing to engage in life, not cutting off social media, not cutting off people, right? Blocking people and stuff like that on your phone. The most powerful things that you can do when it comes to that is going to be, number one, figuring out who you are so that you can remain centered in who you are. But then two, you want to not be creating a whole case in your head, right? Hearing some things that they say, assigning meaning to them in your head, thinking about all the stuff in your head, keeping score of all the things that they said, whether or not you losing or winning, did this, is it something that's harmful? Is it something that's good that just came out of their mouth? Is there something bad that just came out of their mouth? When you start to assign it different labels like that during the conversation, that's when you get that energy build up. That's when you get that anger, that mistrust, that doubt build up. And so just that simple act of not labeling the things that they say can really be helpful in you, number one, actually hearing what they have to say, but number two, not escalating the situation. Fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter. People think like it's and they like pursue the conversations with like such vehemence. They really do believe that when you're in a conversation and you're going back and forth, that something gets accomplished. But when you are not connecting with that person, nothing, it goes nowhere. You are shouting your things, they are shouting their things, and that's it, right? And then until one of y'all cut somebody else off, right? Until somebody deactivates their social media, or until somebody gets blocked or whatever, or somebody walks away, hangs up the phone, whatever the case may be, like nothing gets accomplished then, right? And so ideally you would stay. Ideally, you would stay in the conversation. You would continue to connect. You would stay in life. You would stay present for the conversation, which means that you are not keeping a mental log of what's positive and what's negative that's coming up, and that type of thing. And also remaining curious, like, what are you learning from this conversation? You know what I mean? Like, there's always something new, some new perspective or something like that. And it doesn't mean that all of a sudden you have to agree with what they say, or somebody has to turn somebody and change their opinions or whatever. It definitely doesn't have to be that. that way, right? Like that's not the outcome. That's not the solution. Is for everybody to think the same thing. Um, so the benefits that I see from applying all of this is how relationships improve, right? When people feel seen, heard, and respected, especially during disagreements, relationships are improved. Um, you build your own resilience and emotional intelligence, which again it's going to be way more beneficial to you than you going off the deep end, than you blowing your top because of what somebody said. Um, and then also you gain the confidence to in yourself, period, right? And that will help you to navigate other conversations and to navigate conversations in every area of your life, right? Work, family, and beyond. And so, um, if you are interested in having a tough conversation with me, um, or any conversation with me about how we can. That's just so funny. If you are interested in having a conversation with me about how you can apply this in real life to your life and your practices, that just put a smiley face emoji down in the comment section.